would now like to introduce you to a fascinating contributor to the cognitive psychologies, Mr. Stephen Karpman. Now, Stephen came up with this really interesting idea. Well, I find it interesting, and I do hope that you will too. I think it was back in the maybe in the early 70s, I think it was. He referred to this initially as the Karpman triangle. Some circles call it the Karpman triangle. Other people refer to it as the drama triangle, all right? The victim drama triangle, the drama triangle of social dependency. Now, this is a really interesting model that we can use to really discern where people are at. And when I'm talking about discerning where people are at, what I'm talking about is being able to identify the kind of mindset that they're operating out of, all right, when they come to you. Because as a cognitive behavioral therapist or a helping practitioner, or it might be the case that you're a coach or something like this, people won't come to you when they don't have problems. They will come to you when they do have problems. And the greatest problem that most people have generally is related in some way in how they relate to other people. So this victim drama triangle gives us a bit of a framework to help us to identify the roles that sometimes people occupy inside of their minds. Remember, life is a big perception game. Now, the book that Stephen wrote was a book called A Game-Free Life. And what he suggests and discusses throughout this book is that pretty much all the time, people are playing games with people when they attempt to say things in a certain way to get a certain outcome or trigger a certain response in people. And if you think about it, many children do this, don't they? Have you ever known a child or a young person to really pull your triggers or press your buttons? It's kind of like they're playing games. They know what winds you up. They know how to get a certain response. And sometimes if you've got a little girl or something like this, they'll put on the puppy dog eyes and they'll look like that. And it's not like they actually have puppy dog eyes, but they're just good at putting them on when they want a certain outcome or something like that. So what Stephen discusses is how, as mature and balanced adults, we are to live a game-free life. And we don't actually need to occupy or operate out of these roles that he goes on to define. Many people who come to us for help, for coaching, for a form of therapy or counselling or something like this, will often see themselves as being a victim, where they will blame their circumstances, they'll blame their outcomes, might blame their parents, society, God, religion, church, their teachers, for being the root cause as to why they have turned out the way that they have done. It's everyone else's fault, or it's someone else's fault why they feel the way that they do. It's never their fault for choosing the life's path that they've taken. It's always someone else to blame. So the way that Steve breaks this down is he says that some people will operate out of this victim mindset. And this is where people adopt this attitude. Poor me, you just don't know what it's like to be me. You'll never understand what I've been through. My set of life experiences are just extreme and bespoke to me. No one else can relate to what I've been through in life. And come on, in truth and fairness, no one in life ever is going to be able to understand what we've been through. Why? Because no one's ever going to be able to walk a lifetime in our shoes. And in the same way, we will never be able to walk a lifetime in anyone else's shoes either. So we'll never be able to fully understand another person, why they act and behave and say and do the things that they say and do, although we can empathically relate as we compare our life experiences to theirs. But what I'm going to say here, quite boldly, is that the victim mindset is certainly not an empowered one. When a person says, I cannot change, this is just who I am, this is just my limitations, I can't do this, I can't do that, I've been born with this condition or with this limitation, I am underprivileged and less capable than my peers and other people. And it's just a victim mindset. Generally, when people are operating out of a victim mindset, well, in order to be a victim, we need a bad guy or a persecutor, don't we? We need someone to blame, or we need something to blame, or society to blame, or a social institution to blame, or a politician to blame, or we need the economy to blame, or our parents to blame, or whoever to blame. Because as long as we're pointing fingers and blaming someone else for our flaws and failings, then that's going to really save us from needing to point our fingers a little bit closer to home and take ownership of the choices that we make and the decisions that we that we make also. So here's the thing, all right? Remember, this is just a game of perception. That's all this is that happens inside of our minds. It's just how we relate to ourselves sometimes, and it's how we relate to other people. I mean, think about it. If we're just to consider how it is that a person of a victim mindset will position themselves cognitively in relation to a persecutor or a bad guy or a bad woman or something like this. Well, the victim's kind of down here, the helpless victim. I was not strong enough to defend myself or protect myself. I am the hard done by one, and the persecutor is bigger than and stronger than and nastier than and more vicious than, or is this all just a game of perception? All right, it actually is. Now, if you think about it, the reason why you need to understand this model is because if you don't understand this, if a person is operating from this place of victim mentality and they are looking to those bad guys out here, then what they're most likely going to be looking to you for is to be their hero, to be their good guy, where you can be their hero, you can take away their pain. And if you don't take away the pain, guess who's going to become the next bad guy? That's right, you are. Why? Because this is how they've learned to habitually relate to people. When people give them what they want, they're okay, they're good guys. But the second that a person doesn't keep them happy or commit to giving them what they want, they become the perpetrator, the bad guy. And what's true for all those bad guys out there will potentially become true for you also if you are not aware of these games that sometimes some people play in the context of their own minds. So rescuers, right? Those occasions and those individuals who set themselves up as rescuers, as healers, as helpers, as gurus. Come to me and I will take away your pain. I will make your anxiety go away. I will make your depression go away. I will do my thing, do my magic stuff and make all your nasty feelings go away. All right? What I'm saying here, this drama triangle doesn't just revolve around the victim mindset. Sometimes you have people who need to be rescuers, who actually need to be gurus, who need to be healers. Why? Because it gives them this false sense of security. People define themselves and their confidence stems from their ability to make other people whole again or feel happy again or something like this. So sometimes people need to be a victim. It's a role that people identify with and sometimes operate out of. Sometimes some people just genuinely do believe they are the bad guy. So people operate out of that which they identify with the most. Have you ever considered why it is that sometimes in many nations, some of the prison services have this problem, don't they? Where guys repeat offend. So you'll get a guy who ends up spending time in prison and he might get out or have his sentence cut short for 6 to 12 months early. And then 6 months later, he's back in because he reoffends. Why? Because if you think about it, if a person identifies as being a criminal, they say, this is who I am, I'm a criminal, and they get out and they perhaps don't get a job right away or something like this, then it's easy to fall back into old habits, especially if this is how we identify ourselves as being. So it's important to understand this model. There's not really an exercise that we can use or work through that relates to this, but what we can do is we can look at the role that we're occupying in some of our more prominent relationships. Think about how it is that you might relate to a parent. Perhaps you have a parent or a significant other in your life who you just don't see eye to eye with. Think about someone who you just perceive as being bad. Think about someone who's recently wronged you, someone who's offended you, right? There's bound to be someone in your life who you really don't like, who you have perhaps even bad-mouthed or called bad in the past. What role are you playing here? Because we're all playing roles to some degree. We're either the persecutor, or we're being the victim, or we're trying to be the rescuer and trying to be the hero. And what I'm saying is life can just be simply played so much more effectively outside of these roles when we just simply commit to being ourselves. I mean, I guess we're only ever going to really fulfill this role of being the rescuer or the healer or the guru if we actually need more for our clients and what they actually want for themselves. If we need to be this superior force or authority in other people's lives. To give you Another example of this, I can remember, this was another religious experience I had once, to be honest with you. And I remember walking into this into this religious group once, and this was actually based in Edinburgh. And this was when I was looking for answers myself. I was on this fact-finding mission in life. I wanted to understand what religion was all about and all these sorts of things. And I can remember going into this congregation, and to be honest with you, I didn't find the presenter particularly engaging. But what really captivated my attention was the fact that this guy up on the stage was, communicating in such an authoritative way, so passionate, and he was, saying a whole load of not much, but just very, very passionately. And you have the audience or the congregation that were sitting around, that had their tablets out and their notebooks, pretty much writing down everything that he was saying, hanging off his every single word. And what I was able to identify was this culture of codependency that had come into play. Now, I don't know whether anyone else there was aware of it or not. Maybe it was just me. Maybe I'm just quite a discerning guy. Who knows? But what I could see was that this community, congregation, just seemed so disempowered. It's kind of like they would go along on a Sunday or a midweek because they needed to hear a word of encouragement from this guy, people who genuinely believed that they were broken. And this guy was pretty much validating the fact that these people are broken, they are sinners, they need healed, and they need a saviour, and they need this and they need that, and the only way they're gonna get healed is if they keep on coming along and listening to him every single week. And I thought, my goodness, this is manipulation and control in the highest order. It is blind leading the blind. And in the same way that they needed a rescuer, they needed him to be their hero, he needed them to need him. This is a culture of codependency. It spawns out of this kind of drama triangle. So I'm going to recommend this book at this stage. It's not one of the easiest books to find online. You might have to go to Amazon or one of the online secondhand bookshops to find a copy of this. I think it stopped publishing it around about 20 or so years ago. But a game for your life, it might be the case you're able to get like a PDF copy or something like that. But it's a very, very interesting read. And it really is all about how it is that people relate to each other on a cognitive level. It all happens inside of the mind. Spend 5 to 10 minutes and just review, analyse and honestly critique some of your own relationships. Is there anyone in your life right now who is coming to you from a place of need? And if so, why would you allow this? Why is this okay? What do you need from being needed? Is there a relationship that you have with someone in some way where you just see them as being a bad guy? And if so, does that make you a victim? What mindset are you operating out of? Reflect myself, reflect my friends, and know thyself. Listen, I hope you found this idea interesting. It's one that can outwork itself in pretty much every single one of our relationships in every aspect of life. So it's a good one just to simply be aware of.